Good evening and welcome. You're watching The Big Fight, a show that is not 24 years old but young at 24, the oldest running debate show on Indian news television. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. A very disturbing situation as far as the Israel-Gaza conflict. It is far from any resolution. We see a very strong military offensive from Israel in response to an attack by Hamas from Gazan soil. And unfortunately, it's the people who are the collateral. Whether it was the victims of the attack from Hamas or the victims of this retaliation from Israel. You can see these are some images from different parts of Gaza where Gazans are suffering. And then of course last week you had an attack on a hospital where there were claims that more than 500 people have died, and a bit of a blame game between Israel and the Palestinians on who did it. But while all of this is happening, is peace being given a chance? And what is being done about it? So you see a number of countries are now speaking, and we see a very interesting realignment in the world. Number one, the position of Israel, which everybody knows now they want to, as many analysts say, finish this off. Doesn't work that way, does it? Then you've got the United States, which has its task cut out, very, very difficult act where they have to be seen as supporting Israel, but at the same time now, sympathetic towards the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as a result of this offensive. Now there was a trip by Joe Biden, but many analysts feel that it did not deliver as much as it promised. So in that sense, has Joe Biden's trip failed to deliver? The West scrambling in its response in this crisis. While all of that is happening, the Arab world, which had kind of, according to analysts, given up on the Palestinian cause, seems to be united once again. And then there are countries like Russia and China who are also uniting and presenting themselves as some sort of a peace access power. So you see, around the Israel-Gaza conflict, the world is realigning. And while all of this is happening, where does India find itself? What can India do? How much hope should one have from the Indian position? So on The Big Fight tonight, Israel-Palestine war realignment, where is India in this changed, realigned world order? Let's quickly kickstart our discussion right here. First of all, guests who are joining us via satellite link. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador. Wael Awad is a senior international independent journalist and political analyst. Tara Katha, former National Security Council Secretariat. Dr. Kinvaraj Jangir, currently visiting faculty at the Ben Gurion University in Israel and Director, Center for Israel Studies at the O.P. Jindal Global University. In the studio, I have with me Mr. Syed Ruman Hashmi, Middle East expert and a senior journalist. Thank you very much for joining us. Professor Anuradha Chenoy, former Dean at the School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. And Mr. Kamaraga, Foreign Affairs expert. Thank you very much. We begin the show with what we call is the first punch, where each of you get 1 minute of time for your opening comments. Let's begin with commentary from the studio. Kamaraga, your time starts now.
Sanket, the situation is very bad. A lot of people are dying. Death and destruction is taking place. Time has come, that international community should intervene and get it stopped. Some ceasefire is needed. Immediate ceasefire is needed. Otherwise, things will go out of control. It's already getting out of control. It's not that, they can kill any number of people. It's not, you cannot expel 23 lakh people from this Gaza Strip, because the Israeli plan is to expel them from that area, demolish the entire area, enter into the territory, and then eradicate Hamas. Hamas, you cannot eradicate Hamas. Hamas, you can kill these leaders, you can kill these commanders, but you cannot kill the ideology which they promote. That is the problem with the number of times Israelis have killed Hamas leaders, number of times they have demolished houses over there. But again, we have seen young leaders emerged, new leaders have taken over the charge. They will become more radical.
Sure.
So this is what's happening. This cycle of violence is continuing. It has to be end. And the only solution is two-state solution. International community believes in it. America is also committed to it.
Okay.
Western Europe is also committed to it. India is also committed to it. So I suppose,
so through global intervention, a solution on the two-nation.
Two-nation.
Okay, fine. Professor Chinay.
I think first I want to make clear to our viewers and to everyone what Israel is and what it stands for and what we are facing with Israel. Number one, it is a colonial settler state. We, in all the global south, we got rid of colonialism and had our dignity and freedom. But in Israel, this continues. The colonialists, I'm not saying that they don't have a right to be there. They do. It was agreed. But the policies that they have are of increasing their settlements, of removing Palestinians, people from their lands and homes, even till today, and ghettoizing them. Number two, it's an apartheid state, meaning institutionalized based on race. If you are a Jew, you have more rights. If you are a Palestinian, you have less. Your rights are not there. Jews' rights are privileged, whether it's legal, whether it is positions in universities, jobs, whether it's cultural or anything. They're wiping out the Palestinian people systematically, and it's a systematic apartheid state. South Africa was an apartheid state. India and many countries stood with it. They got rid of apartheid. But if South Africa today says the apartheid position there was easier than it is in Israel today, it's much worse. Number three, the settlements increase every week, and then our Palestinian people are walled in. There are illegal killings, there's torture. They have been using them as human shields. They're put on tanks. There's complete evidence. And what I'm saying is based on all UN human rights and other human rights records. So to support Israel in this way is an act of hypocrisy, which the West is doing, which talks so much about human rights, and no one should believe them on human rights until they recognize this. They've been turning a blind eye towards this. Hamas is a creation of
Israel,
of Netanyahu and Israel. So, we condemn terrorism. We don't like their methods, but we must not decontextualize. You must recognize that this is a reality of the Palestinian people.
Okay, Mr. Hashmi.
See, Israel, as Mrs. Chinay said, that is a apartheid state. It is indeed a apartheid state. Israel government, one pretext or another, hell-bent upon killing the Palestinian people, putting them behind the jail. You know that Israel is the single country in the world where 5 years child, the Palestinian child, their trial are conducted in the military court. Have you ever heard it? More than 10,000 Palestinians, they are behind the jail. More than 5,000 without any reason, without any trial. They are languishing in jail for years. When in Gaza, they bombarded the hospital, now denying, even Mr. Netanyahu, they make them believe, the European and the Joe Biden also, they had come, that it was bombarded by default of Islamic Jihad. But Naftali, Hanan Naftali, who looks after the digital media of Prime Minister Netanyahu, he posted immediately declaring that Israeli army hit the target on the hospital, eliminating many Hamas militants or terrorists. And later on, they deleted the post. So it indicates that they are in practice and they are executing their military doctrine, which is known as the Dahiya doctrine, which they had executed during 2006 in Lebanon attack against Hezbollah. The Dahiya doctrine says that every moving things, elements must be considered as the militant or the terrorist, and the infrastructure.
I'm going to come back to you so that we can accommodate all the opening comments of 1 minute each. I'll come back to you and then you can complete your thought later. Ambassador Prabhudeya, your opening comments.
Well, what I'm going to say may sound easier than it will actually turn out to be. In the short term, we have to get both sides to stop the fighting. Both Israel and Hamas have to stop firing these rockets and causing so much of damage. Secondly, we have to somehow make sure that the Palestinians who are living in hell, their condition should be eased and relief supplies should be rushed to them. And thirdly, we have to make sure that the war does not spread to neighboring countries. We have to contain this war. Now, as I said, this may sound easier than it actually will prove to be in a reality. But without the war stopping, without the sufferings of the Palestinians being addressed, without the war being allowed to spread, this situation will only worsen.
Yeah.
Now, the other panelists have very correctly pointed out that there is a need to address this broader question of providing statehood to Palestine, of giving them a homeland in that sense.
Yeah.
Because at the moment they are living in a terrible situation. So I differentiate between the short-term objectives and the long-term objectives. Both have to be addressed.
Okay, Tara Katha.
Yeah, I'm going to differ slightly because I come from a background of counterterrorism, right? So Hamas is a terrorist organization. Let's not make any bones about that. They have time and again used civilians to get their point across. I remember 2018 when they brought in 40,000 people to the border, trying to push them in, knowing fully well that the Israelis would fire, and then created that into an international situation. So this time they have killed Israelis. And as a country, that is an act of terror. Now, stepping away from that, what you see now, I don't see it as a counter-terrorism operation. This is war. And this is, I think, the fourth war. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. You can't have a war. You can have a counter-terrorism operation. And that is possible because the Israelis have superb intelligence. So this question, which I see it is, how do you deal with Hamas? And how do you then get a solution? That is where we need to find. Otherwise, I would say the whole international relations is going to see a flux,
Sure.
I'm going to stop there.
Okay, yes. Mr. Wailawad, your opening comments, sir.
Thank you. I think I echo whatever I have been hearing till now. What I would like to add that the project of creating Israel in the heart of Palestine was carried out 100 years ago. And for the last 75 years after the division of Palestine, we have lived on the weapon of mass deception that we continue to believe that Israel is the victim and the Arabs does not want peace. And that's why they have been annihilating Palestine, denying them right of existence, confiscating their houses, expanding their territories by occupying more territories and building settlement that side. So therefore, this continued till date. The fight is not between Israel and Hamas. The fight was between Israel and the Arab world. And over the years, it has been reduced to Israel and Hamas. That is why to give you now the weapon of mass destruction carried out in Gaza to justify the project, because the war on Gaza unilaterally declared is nothing but a continuation of the old policy of annexing the whole of Palestine.
Okay. Dr. Kinvaraj Jangir, your comments, sir.
Thank you. I think if I take what the last speaker said, that it was once upon a time Arab-Israel conflict, I think, which was completely futile from the point of view of the Palestinian people. I think Yasser Arafat put this conflict as a Palestinian self-determination and anti-colonialist struggle, which did get international recognition in late 1980s, and then there was a Oslo peace process. I think what the Yasser Arafat tried, the gun and the ammunition, did succeed, that he was given from a revolutionary and part militant recognition as a leader and a national leader of the Palestinian national movement. Unfortunately, when he was agreeing to the two-state solution in principle and in practice in the 90s, Hamas rose to declare him a terrorist, a traitor, and a weak old man who now cannot fight Israel with gun. I think Hamas has done a tremendous damage to the Palestinian nationalist struggle in the 90s because unlike Yasser Arafat, Hamas brought religion into it and defined its goal as full liberation of the whole of Palestine without recognizing the right of the Israeli state to exist. And it does call this conflict to be a cause of the global Islam, which I think is a terrible loss of the legacy and the hard work and the lives lost by the PLO and Yasser Arafat himself. So I think we need to really separate Hamas from the larger international solidarity.
I think that's an important,
very well for the Palestinian people even today.
Yeah, that's an important point. I don't think there is anyone on this panel who would not agree that what Hamas did was a terrorist act. This was very much an act of terrorism.
Yes,
it's very clear.
In fact, Hamas, very proudly announced.
But Hamas still has, not to say this, I am watching for the last 6-7 days what's being written in India. It's very interesting to blame Israel for the blockade and the siege on Gaza. But from the day one, Israelis said, return the 203 captives in order for us to end the blockade. Nobody talks about the 203 captives. And by the way, in that there is a Vivian Silver, a woman who for the last 20 years launched a movement in Israel called Women Wage Peace. Largest peace movement by a woman organization that has equal number of women from the Palestinian society, even from Gaza and West Bank.
Yeah.
She is a captive right now in Gaza.
Okay. Mr. Qamar Agha, do you feel that whenever you say that global intervention will bring in peace when you recognize these two nations, and that is how you come to a solution to this problem, this long-standing problem, right? Number one, do you feel that only global intervention can fix this and it cannot be solved between the two, which has been quite tragic, its trajectory?
No, the problem is, Israel believes, in the attempt of this government, or even before, to establish a greater Israel.
Yeah.
And this government have announced with great fanfare that they are going to annex the whole of West Bank. They said this is a biblical land, and this is the land where their kings and prophets have ruled, and they have the right to annex it. Not only that, but they have also said that we will also annex the local the Arabs living there, the Palestinian living there also. So that is a matter of great concern. That created a big, tension within the Palestinian society. Then they are saying that the Jerusalem is an united capital of Israel. We are not going to withdraw from there. Settlement activities, the massive settlement activities are going on. Large number of new settlements they are going to build. They are also expanding the old settlements. So these are the problems, So Israel is not willing to talk now. Israel is saying that we don't have partner in peace. Maybe, yes. They may not be having, So need is, to build pressure. It's a problem, the most important role become the international community. When I talk of international community, means the members of the Security Council, these P5 particularly. America and Western Europe, they are very important, America is because Americans have very good relations with Israel. They are the ones, who are supporting militarily, they are supporting economic aid is also going to Israel from United States and other Western allies. So therefore, it is incumbent on these powers to put pressure. First of all, they should establish a ceasefire between the both. Arabs should put pressure on Hamas, to cease the activities. These things can be negotiated, these things can be done, but there is no will. because the President Biden has given free hand to Netanyahu, you know, that you have the right to defend yourself. Fine, they have the right to defend, but they have also said, you know, that you have the right to go in fact, you know, that is a major problem, you know, to eradicate Hamas. And everybody knows the Hamas cannot be eradicated.
Correct. Professor Chinoy, do you feel that in that context, the response of the West has kind of fumbled over the past 2 weeks, ever since the war began, and you've got the Arab world, which had kind of given up on the Palestinian cause, has united, and you've got a new axis which is forming in Russia and China looking at this. And then of course I'll come to the larger question on sitting here in India, where this is also a topic of discussion, that where do we find ourselves in this mix. So one by one, first the West, then the Arab world. How would you respond?
So before that, first I just want to say that everyone condemns, including me, everyone condemns the fact of the terrorist attack. But what has happened is that the West and some people are clutching onto it as a way to just, collectively punish the entire Palestinian people. So now they deserve it. It's upon them. They've done this. This is their leadership. And therefore, Israel has rights. Of course, Israel has rights to defend itself. But look, see what they're doing now. Hostages, there could have been a hostage exchange. There have been hostage exchanges in every war. There's a way to do it. The Hamas must have said, we'll give this, and they could give this. So those are other issues. Third, therefore, about the West. The West is standing just with Israel on this issue. In all these meetings, only Biden has once said that yes, there should be a two-state solution in his when he spoke in Israel. But everyone knows that neither Israel nor the US, they have been combined in this oppression against Palestine, and repeatedly they have not stuck to their promises. And now the rest of the West is completely behind Biden on this. So the Arab countries and the rest, what we call the global majority, they have lost faith in what they are saying. Even if they say, yes, we'll have a two-state solution, until it's signed and delivered, I don't think the Palestinians or the Arabs will really believe them. Third, the Arab states, for the first time, there is some, there's engagement between them. Saudi Arabia and Iran, China mediated, and there have been some engagement. And they're all united on this one issue. On other issues, they will still, fall out. But at least they're saying that this now is a red line. There must be a Palestinian, kind of viable state for them. This division between West Bank and Gaza should stop. After all, there's no Hamas in the West Bank. There's a Palestinian Authority. Why are they being punished? 800 West Bank people were abducted yesterday. You see, so these atrocities continue. And the Arab states now are pushing this line because the Arab street is angry and their own legitimacy is at stake. From Turkey to Baghdad to everywhere, they're on the streets and they will not go back. And that is why there's more and more censorship in the Gaza Strip and in Israel. There's no food being given, no water, no health. Hospitals are being bombed by whoever, but 50 people are being killed. So the curtain has been drawn so these atrocities can continue. And I think what Tara said, that this is a war. War meaning with one side, which will have the paraslingers or whatever, and the other side, which will have the latest American machinery, $10 billion in aid, and for them $2 million in humanitarian assistance, which we hope will come. So it's a very unequal thing, and I think, like India's position has been, we should stand on the side of Palestine and be good brokers in this.
I'm going to come to what India can do in just a bit, but let's first discuss the West and, of course, the regrouping or realignment of the Arab world. Tara Kartha, would you like to say something about this? First of all, do you think that the West response has fumbled?
Not fumbled. I mean, the shift in policy occurred after President Trump. You remember the whole thing went towards Israel, saying that, we are backing Israel, Jerusalem is the capital, and so on and so forth. Now, in with protests across Europe, I think they are going to have second thoughts. Nobody wants refugees. I mean, this is across Europe or the Middle East. Nobody wants these refugees coming into their countries. So the please remember, this attack occurred for what? Which all of us know. It occurred because there was a Middle East solution in the works. That is why Hamas did this. Because if Israel and Saudi Arabia had come together, and we were talking of the whole IMEC, the route across and all that stuff, if that had happened, Palestine issue would have been forgotten by everybody. So that is the timing for this. And it has succeeded very well. But that doesn't mean that either the West or the Arab state will change their own economic interests by a jot. They are not going to change. They will manage this issue as much as they can. And which is why Israel knows, relatively, it has a free hand. Relatively speaking. Because nobody, the poor Palestinians, who will give them shelter? Who is willing to stand up and say, okay, I'll fight for you? He's not fumbling so much as trying to show that we care about everybody, but at the same time, we're not going to, we're not getting into this. That's us.
Okay, Wailawad, your view on the West response, and also what has forced? Is it the misery of the people or the Palestinians which has got the Arab world together, or something else as being suggested?
Well, let me just say that what's happening in Gaza and currently has exposed the hypocrisy of the West. In fact, by giving full support for an Israel all-out assault. I'm not saying that the two-state solution is not the best. We have lived with the Jews for years, for centuries together. We are cousins from the same, we are from the same father, Abraham. So we do not have anything against each other.
Dr. Jahangir, would you like to weigh in? And then Ambassador Prabhudeya.
I think
only and specific. I'll come to India in just a moment. Only specifically on the West and the Arab world.
I do think that the West has least credibility when it comes to the Palestinians. Americans, even when they worked the Oslo peace process in the 90s, gave up too much leverage to Benjamin Netanyahu, who came after the death of Yitzhak Rabin, to just derail the whole Oslo peace process. I think Benjamin Netanyahu has been too powerful leader within the Israeli politics to really not commit to the peace process that once upon a time Israel paid a price of its own prime minister for. So I think West doesn't have a credibility. Does it mean can any other player have credibility? I don't think so. I think we need to look at it from a very broad perspective. Conflict will be resolved when the two parties will exhaust all their anger, ideologies, and the stamina to fight and kill each other. I think we can be facilitators. And
facilitators in what? Anger?
No, facilitators to help them have peace, but they don't really right now. There are pockets in Israeli politics, and there is Hamas among the Palestinian national movement who really look at this conflict in ideological, religious terms.
But you see, that is only worse, and it's not like peace was not given a chance in history. And if we take a brief detour and talk about history, to whoever in whichever constituency, whether the Palestinians or Israelis, who tried to give peace a chance, were either feared that they will be rejected or were bumped off or were killed, assassinated.
I completely agree. But right now, there's another problem, which I think Tara identified, is the role of Iran. I think Iran is playing a much bigger role by giving a lot of wrong encouragement to Hamas to keep on fighting with arms. I think the fight with arms is not going to win. Arafat did it, and it cannot be now repeated with another outcome.
Mr. Hashmi, so just taking from what Dr. Jahangir is suggesting, obviously, non-violence is not Hamas's strategy.
Yeah.
It's clearly an organization which is an armed organization which adopts militant means, which commits an act of terrorism, and that is being met with an even stronger response from Israel.
Yes.
Unfortunately, and as we said at the very beginning, it's the people of Gaza are the collateral. And by the way, we have reported a lot on this channel and shown that all Gazans don't support Hamas.
Yes, that's
There
right.
are protests against Hamas also in Gaza.
They are general civilian. Most of them are general civilians who have taken shelter in the hospitals, in the churches. Yesterday night, one Orthodox church destroyed, bombarded, and eight people died over there. So every civilian, so they are taking shelter. Where what is the problem? Where they go? The Rafah border is closed. They can't move to the West Bank. It has become besieged. Gaza Strip has become an open jail. The Israeli government told them to shift towards south, and then they moved the southern part of the Gaza.
And to add to that, we have learned that the underground tunnel network in Gaza city is 500 kilometers long by some estimates.
Yes.
The Delhi Metro underground is 100 kilometers. So the underground network of the militants of Hamas is 5 times more than the Delhi Metro underground system.
Israel claims that they are destroying the channels, the underground tunnels, which provide the shelter, and all the leadership are there, and the arms and the rocket and the whatsoever missiles they are stored over there. They are destroying. But see, so far around 4,000 people have died, right? And 1,000, more than 1,000 are the children. 1,000 are 1,400 something like women. So the male figure died around Palestinian living in the Gaza. They are around 1,000. So let's say, presume that 500 militant died over there, and the 500 the general civilian. So who are dying? They have become
Mr. Hashmi, just
they have
quickly
become
coming,
the number.
just quickly coming back to the West's ability to bring peace in the region. I just want to know from you, is the West's response that of a facilitator in peace, or are they aggravating, or doing both?
See, Sanketji, the West has been programmed into believing that Israel on a just, and they are doing injustice. The demand of a free Palestine is unjust. As Mr. Jahangir also cited 2 times, the religion alignment of Hamas. Say what you will consider and what you will say about the religious doctrine and the religious belief of the greater Israel, which Netanyahu and the Zionist other Israeli, they incites, they seize the greater Israel, getting the inspiration,
by the way, Mr. Kamaraga, whatever Mr. Netanyahu is doing, it's not that he's a very popular man in Israel. Latest surveys suggest that post this war also,
no more. But
66% people don't like him.
Yes. But he's very intelligent. He's now formed a unity government. So the war will continue because everybody wants.
He is saving himself from corruption and the bribery, which is in the court. The issues are.
No, the unity government is there at the moment, but most of the people in Israel, they are not in favor of Palestine.
Of course.
They were fighting for their own rights. They were opposing Netanyahu, but they were not promoting democratic rights for the Palestinian people. That is also a problem there. Second thing, Hamas is not liked by the Arabs. Saudi Arabia has big problem with Hamas, because Hamas belong to Ikhwan-e-Muslimin. That is a different sect, which is opposed to basically Saudi Arabia, the Wahhabi setup, which is there in Saudi Arabia. And but now, Hamas has united. It's an irony, the Hamas has, after this, this attack on Israel is a game changer. Game changer in the sense when Israel responded with heavy hand on Gaza, you know. So what has happened that the youth, everybody has come out on the street at the moment, at this time, you know, after the Friday prayer, you would see millions of people in
but
the
that's
Arab
sad, no? That it took a terrorist attack by Hamas to unite the Arab world for the
no,
Palestinian
not that.
cause.
Israeli respond to that terrorist
The response
attack.
to that. No, but then it began with the terror attack.
It began with the terror. At that time, you know, they were silent. When the response started coming, you know, then they come out. You know, the people came out after 4 or 5 days, not immediately. And secondly, you know, Hamas is not popular even, as you mentioned, you know, among the Palestinians themselves, you know, they were losing credibility. The most important thing at the moment is ceasefire. Ceasefire is, but the problem is this is the election year. President Biden is more interested in election than in solving the problem in Palestine or Israel, whatever you call it. You know, he came there also because of the election compulsions. He wanted to show solidarity because the Jewish vote are very important in American elections. They are very powerful lobby. They are very moneyed people. They have big funder to both the political parties. So that is why, you know, that was one of the reasons for his coming to...
Now I want to spend the next 10 minutes talking about what India can do. You see, Dr. Jahangir, initially, at least politically, or the political response or the domestic response here in this country, and Tara Kartha can also weigh in just a short moment, was that the country seems to be tilting in its inclination towards Israel, but our official position still remains. Do you feel that, Dr. Jahangir, there is something changed in India's foreign policy, or are both these things correct? That we stand for the Palestinian cause also, and at the same time we are cozying up to Israel as well? And what role can we or should we play?
I think India's stand is serving both of its objectives. I think there is no contradiction in what India is doing. It can actually be both at the same time. However, there is a limit to what India can do more. I think what Ambassador Kamal Aga mentioned, Iran and the ideological alignment of the religious fanatics is a very critical, background to this. And India, unfortunately, has no goodwill even with Iran these days. Our relationship with Iran has gone really down because of the kind of positions that India has taken on the Iranian nuclear program in the light of American and Indian friendship. So I think if a country doesn't have any leverage with Iran, then you cannot really de-escalate the conflict. Hamas will de-escalate if the two players from the Middle East will tell Hamas to do it. Qatar and Iran. They are the financiers, they are the providers of arms to Hamas, and they are the only players that can tell Hamas to de-escalate and release the hostages. The second thing that can also be...
And how is our equation? You spoke about our equation with Iran. What about Qatar?
With Qatar, see, Qatar plays everybody very smartly. I don't really think with Qatar we have a leverage than just the give and take around the commodities and oil. India doesn't have any kind of a deterrence or a leverage to do. I think Kamal Aga mentioned, and you mentioned that when Biden came, he went back with little in his hands. I disagree with that. I think there are two big takeaways. He stopped Israel from getting into Gaza. Israeli army has been prepared 7 days ago, and they have not entered into Gaza because there is a clear instruction, no ground operation at the cost of the human life. Second, he cautioned Israelis not to get mad the way Americans got mad after 9/11. He actually said, after the rage of 9/11, we got a bit mad and we took wrong decisions. I hope you don't make the same mistake. The second thing I think he achieved from the day one from America is that he sent American fighting force to the Mediterranean because he knew that Iran and Hezbollah will really get into this conflict. And he cannot afford a bigger conflict than what it is right now. So I think his stopping Iran is only his stopping. Otherwise, Iran will really not be deterred by any other actor right now in the Middle East.
Sure. Mr. Wailawad, what do you expect from India?
Well, let me just continue because we break the voice. What I was saying that this is the hypocrisy of the West. It is a shame on the international community that they have started this problem 75 years ago and they are not able to solve it. Secondly, if you want to talk about India, I think India is in a better position because India is not a colonial society. India is a civilized. India belongs 10,000 history behind it. And if we are following what Mahatma Gandhi, we have to follow what we preach. If Palestine belongs to the Palestinian, as England belongs to the British, as France belongs to the French. So therefore, we are not saying we wanted to wipe out Israel. We are accepting a two-state solution. This is one. And the second part, if I have to follow Guru Nanak Ji steps, that we are all human before we say what religion we are following, whether Sikh or a Hindu or a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian. Let us stop this carnage. It is the mother of all carnage on the hand of the Palestinian. You cannot kill the Palestinian of 23 lakh inside Gaza concentration camp because there is a 12,000 Hamas fighters inside. It's not one Hamas fighter killing is equal to 20,000 Palestinians to be killed to achieve your goal. The goal of this is not the new Middle East order you are trying to create, because Condoleezza Rice talked about it in 2006 and it was a stillbirth order, because unless and until you address the issue of the Palestinian, you cannot solve it. So India have a strong stakeholder in this region and can play a proactive role by stopping this war, by bringing people onto the table and adhere to the international law, adhere to UN Security Council resolution and implement it. End occupation, end settlement, end aggression against the Palestinians. That's not the question. I interviewed Arafat when Netanyahu was first time a prime minister, and I asked him 3 times, what do you expect from Netanyahu? He left up his hand 3 times and he said nothing. I asked Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestinian Authority, the same question 10 years later. When Netanyahu came to power, what did he say? He said, talk for talk. We went to Oslo agreement with them. They were giving them 5 years interim period. It's not that the Palestinians does not want peace. It's not that the Palestinians are wanted to kill the Israelis. No, it is everybody wants peace. Even Hamas, whom I am not happy with them, whom I am not friendly with them, was what they have done to my country as well. But when it came to the reconciliation between Hamas and Palestinian Authority, they said we are agreeing to 1967 border to have a two-state solution. But the division within Hamas and the Palestinian Authority was widened because Hamas, we all know that they have given 60% of their equipment, according to Israeli sources, from the Jewish settlers. So therefore, let us talk human. Let us be human in this issue. And I think India is a leader in the new world order, in the new reshaping of the new world order, to make sure that there should be an end for the violence, an end for killing, and let us live peacefully. Our life is very short, and let us enjoy all
Yes, Dr. Jangid, before you come in, because I know you have an extremely strong opinion on this, I have to bring in Tara Kartha. She's been waiting for a long time. Tara Kartha, my question is this. Do you necessarily see a change or a drift in India's foreign policy vis-a-vis Palestine? And number 2, what do you think is the role that India can play in this changing world order?
Fortunately, couple of days later, we came up again with our traditional Palestinian position. Otherwise, but I think, by and large, the first statement resonated across, saying that we stand with Israel. That resonated across the Middle East. But the second statement, which came a couple of days later, it clarifies our position, right?
But here is the thing, Tara Kartha, we spoke to a lot of representatives in the government and they said that the first response was a response to a terror attack.
Yeah.
The second response was an official position as far as Palestine is concerned. So these are not two different things, but a continuation of the same.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to come to, saying that we've suffered terrorism for years. So this is, for us, it's a very emotional thing. It's an emotive thing. When there's a terrorist attack, and that too on such a horrific scale, your thing is saying no terrorism, sorry, that is it. That's the bottom line. And then, however, we also have the two-state solution. What should we do? I agree with Professor Jahangir that there's not a lot, because there's the whole Russia-China together. Now you can see the 2 envoys were sitting together in Qatar and, talking about, so that's one side. And then you have the US and the others on the other. So if we indeed have a clout in the global south, what we call, that is the way to go. We could get those people, a bunch of Brazil in fact put up that UN resolution recently, which got shot down by the United States. But you can get those countries on board and put up, or perhaps talk about mediation, talk of a ceasefire, because the bottom line is this: Israel's victory will come only if it can allow the Palestinian people to survive, give them aid, give them assistance. A counter-terrorism victory cannot happen like this by bombing. They will make it worse. And that is what Hamas wants.
Okay. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, sorry we lost your connection. Would you like to weigh in on what should be the expectation from India and what India can do?
Sanket, when I was able to re-enter the discussion, I found that you said something which really hit the nail on the head. I heard you saying that when Prime Minister Modi said that India stands firmly with Israel in this difficult hour, he was only making a statement in the context of the Hamas terrorist attack. Unfortunately, his statement was misunderstood by some quarters, and an unnecessary debate started over India's official position on the Israel-Palestine issue. Let me reiterate, what Prime Minister Modi said was in the context of the terrorist attack alone. India, as you said, unequivocally condemns terrorism, but at the same time, India stands alongside the Palestinian people, and Prime Minister's statement did not mean that India's position on the Palestinian issue changed. Let me also go back a little bit in time. Prime Minister Modi has been able to successfully do the tightrope walk, which involves the relationship between India and Palestine on one hand, India and Israel on the other. It's a tightrope walk because very often we are misunderstood. Prime Minister Modi has tried to carefully balance India's relations with both Israel and Palestine. Let me mention that in 2017, he was the first ever Indian Prime Minister who paid a visit to Israel. However, next year itself, he became the first ever Indian Prime Minister who paid a visit to Palestine. So he has done everything possible. Now, India has, as I said, to walk a tightrope walk. But we are doing it well. We support Palestine. At the same time, we want a close relationship which is mutually beneficial with Israel. As I said in my opening remarks, the need of the hour is to end this fighting.
Yes, but Ambassador Dayal, my question was, one is India wants this to happen, and the other is what does India do or can do to make this happen?
Well, what can India do? India does not have the leverage with the Hamas to release the hostages. Let me mention that, as one panelist said, there could have been a hostage exchange, but you know what Hamas did went much more far than just taking hostages. It killed a lot of Israelis, and in the context of the domestic political situation in Israel, Netanyahu found himself in a situation where he had to go full guns blazing against Hamas. And frankly speaking, a situation was created in Israel where they didn't really care whether the Palestinians were wiped out.
Collateral.
You know, there is no sympathy for the Palestinians in Israel because Hamas made the blunder of carrying out this terrorist attack. I say blunder because Hamas should have anticipated what a strong reaction there would be from the Israelis. So in this present situation, we have no leverage. We can't stop the Israelis from bombing Palestine. We can't stop Hamas from doing what it is doing. We can't get Hamas to release the hostages. So there's nothing really.
So apart from reiterating our position, according to Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, we can't do much. Amar Aga wanted to come in, and then Dr. Jani.
No, I just want to, India can do something, you know. India can appeal, issue an appeal. India has a big voice, you know. within the Arab community, Arab world, as well as in America and everywhere, the global community. So I'm not saying that India should convene a meeting of these two political parties. No, there's no need to do. If India talks of peace, India talks of ceasefire, it would be taken very seriously. Second thing, the most important person at the moment in Arab politics is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, MBS. He is the key, because he is supporting the Palestinian cause. He's not supporting the Hamas, mind it, He's supporting, and he has very good relation, and the entire Arab world at the moment, they are behind him.
Yeah, like most of them.
Most of them, behind him, and he has good improve his relation with the Iran also, while continuing to negotiate with the Americans. So he is the person, he should be involved. Negotiation should start. First thing is ceasefire, and then negotiation.
Quick, last 1 minute, please.
Yes, so I think the West has very little credibility in this.
Yeah.
The Arab states and Palestine don't trust them. They talk of human rights, imposing it, and on the other hand, they are watching it every day. So the hypocrisy is very clear. So who are the trusted people? It is India, Russia, China, who have stood with this. So I'm not saying that they can be the only negotiators. You can't have a negotiation because the Israelis and the
Russia
West
and China will have the credibility to end the war?
No. I'm saying the West and Israel is on one side, the Palestinians and the Arabs are on the other side, but there are some states which have credibility with both.
Okay.
And India is amongst those states which can be part of a ring for immediate ceasefire and other things.
Dr. Jahangir's last word. Russia, China, India as a possible power axis to balance things out on the West failings.
I don't think I will go into a speculation. I was raising my hand for the sake of Gandhi and his legacy. And I, as a follower of Gandhi's thought, I really want to reply to something that Wael Awad said. So Gandhi's quote of 1938 is very famous. Palestine belongs to the Arabs. We often forget, or maybe don't know enough, that in 1946, after the Holocaust, Gandhi said, Jews have a good cause. If Arabs have a claim, Jews have a prior claim. There's a very good book on this, and I think we need to really understand history as it was. Another point, India did not have diplomatic relations, but Nehru wrote letters to Ben-Gurion. Parliament members of Nehru and his own party traveled to Israel, carried back messages for Nehru. I think Nehru couldn't really have relations because of the Arab pressure. But I think we mistake that India stood much against the legacy and the history of Zionism. I don't think early Indian leaders
tell you what, it's a very difficult situation for me to look at solutions for a decade-long problem in a 50-minute discussion. Well, thank you so much. We've attempted so that you can have an informed opinion. That's all the time we have in this edition of The Big Fight. News continues on the other side. Stay tuned.